Welcome to FailCraft, the podcast where we dive into the messy, real side of success and explore how setbacks become the stepping stones for growth and clarity. I'm your host, Ezekiel Iferia, and today's guests are Anne Craig Cinnamon and John Cinnamon. Over the course of their 30-year marriage, they traveled to more than 120 countries and all 7 continents. They are former broadcasters, documentary filmmakers, seasoned global explorers, but they aren't just influencers chasing a curated, filtered aesthetic. They know that real travel is messy. In their memoir, Travel is No Vacation, a love story. They chronicle the unvarnished reality of exploring the globe. They've hiked the Himalayas, filmed a documentary on the Trans-Siberian Railway, and even tried navigating a rental car through Europe without getting divorced. Through all of it, they've learned one simple truth. When the itinerary collapses, the actual adventure begins. They are here to talk about the myth of the flawless holiday, surviving the ultimate relationship stress test, and finding the best stories in the worst mishaps. So, Anne and John, I am super excited and honored to welcome you guys to the show. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much for joining us here today.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us,
Thank you
Ezekiel.
for having us.
My pleasure having you guys here. So let's start with your memoir, Anne and John. Your book is brilliantly titled "Travel is No Vacation." So, can you start by giving us an overview of this book? So, what motivated you guys to write the book? What is it about? An overview of it, and who the ideal readers for this book are.
I think anybody who is interested in the world, you don't have to be a traveler or even want to travel necessarily, but I think anybody that is interested in the world and other cultures might gain something from it, I would hope. It came because from the fact that we've traveled together for the whole 30 years that we've been married, and things do go wrong along the way. And because of that, you have lots of stories to tell. You know, the time he was held and questioned by Russian security for a couple of hours, the time he was in the hospital because of a pulmonary embolism, the time he drove in the wrong place in Pamplona, Spain, and we were almost arrested. Wait a minute, this is all about him.
I'm sensing a theme that I'm the problem here.
I've had my own issues. In any event, things happen, and because of that, you have to buck up and go, well, you know, we're not stopping. You got to march on. And we were intrigued by, I think, the name of your podcast because we have certainly had fails.
Yeah, and in fact, one of the chapters in the book, we relate, the name of the chapter is The Big Fail. And so, you know, the title of the book, Travel is No Vacation, we draw that comparison between a vacation that someone might take for a week and lay on a beach and do nothing, compared to travel, which is really what we do. Get out there, see the real inside of countries and cultures and people, and do the sometimes very difficult things that are required when you travel the world.
All right. That is a fantastic response from the both of you. So, I haven't traveled to more than 120 countries and all 7 continents. You guys have a bit of experience here. So when we expect an international trip to be a flawless, relaxing vacation, are we fundamentally setting ourselves up for a massive failure of our expectations?
For sure, because things can, especially in today's world, airlines don't always do what you want them to do. So you might get canceled or miss connections or weather gets in the way a lot and that kind of thing. And those are just the low level problems that you can have. And so if you think that your trip is going to be perfect, you really need to rethink it because things definitely can and do go wrong. But sometimes those are the most interesting things that happen. And they're the most challenging. And they also can be very rewarding.
Yeah. When people, particularly Americans, and they think they're going to go to Europe, to Italy or France or England, in their mind, they probably think, oh, yeah, that'll be real easy. But especially if you're going to maybe try to rent a car and drive around, those ancient European roads and streets are not the kind that we have here in America that are go this way or this way. They go every which way, and it's so easy to get lost and find problems just driving. So yes, as you said, people have an expectation. They think it's going to be easy when it's not.
Okay, so you guys joke about how to drive around Europe on vacation with your spouse and not get divorced. So when the GPS fails, you are lost in a foreign country and tensions are high. So what's the secret to not turning that situational failure into a relationship failure? How do you guys stay composed together?
Well, one time we just abandoned the car. We could not get to our hotel. We could see it, but couldn't drive to our hotel in Milan. We literally just sort of abandoned the car and started walking so we could get to the hotel. And then they sent somebody back with us to find the car again and park it in the garage. But those, as John alluded to, those streets in many parts of Europe were not designed for cars. So it's really easy to get lost. Or, another time, well, he finally, after one trip, said, I'm never driving in Europe again. Never.
Yeah.
And so the next trip I drove and got lost again and had, problems. And I think it just comes down to we get along really well and really like each other. And so even if we get mad or whatever, you have to get through it because if you're lost, you got to work together.
That same trip where we got lost in Milan and had to abandon the car, it was that same trip. In fact, it was our very next stop. We drove from Milan into Florence, Italy. And after that mess in Milan, we got into Florence. And again, those streets are impossible to navigate for Americans. They're so narrow. And I think we got lost on the way in there and didn't know where we were going. And once we got to our hotel, got the car parked with the help of someone from the hotel, they had to come out and get in the car with us and drive to the parking garage. After all that, in the hotel room, I literally sort of had a breakdown. I was literally brought to tears, which she will never let me forget.
It's not supposed to be like this.
But it was a moment of sort of breakdown for me, but she was supportive of that. We realized we're in this together. And even though, tempers can flare a little bit, ultimately we know we're in this together as a team and we can get through this, and we do.
We have to.
Right.
What's the alternative?
Fantastic. Being supportive and knowing that you're in this together, you got to overcome the challenges of navigating the complex roads in Europe. So that's fantastic to know. You guys make a clear distinction that you are not influencers chasing content. So would you say that the modern pressure to capture the perfect curated aesthetics ruined the actual messy reality of experiencing a new culture?
Yes. I can't begin to tell you how often nowadays we see people walking around with their cameras, their phones on selfie sticks. And it's hard to get around these people. And there are so many people doing that. And they're traveling and going places, we think, for the wrong reason. They're just trying to they've seen something online. They've seen some beauty shot on Instagram or TikTok video, and they want to get that shot themselves. And they're going to a place not necessarily to experience the place or experience the moment or experience the people. They just want to be able to get a picture of themselves in front of the Eiffel Tower or in front of the Colosseum or in front of the Taj Mahal. And they're not really there to experience what a particular country or culture has to offer.
Now, that's not to say we don't take selfies in front of things. We do. And, we're on social media and whatever. But it's not our sole purpose by any means. And it's usually the last thing we do. You want to get really good shots of things. We're also photographers, and we have done a documentary. And so we're often looking for the unusual shot or a different way to see something. And the most common shot you can have is somebody with their face right in front of, somewhere famous and a lot of preening going on. And we do take selfies, don't get me wrong, but that's not our goal.
We're not above doing that thing at the Leaning Tower of Pisa where you're pretending to hold it up.
Everyone does that.
Yeah, you have to do that. But as she said, we do the selfies as kind of almost an afterthought. We're there, we're experiencing, we're looking at it. Oh, this is beautiful. We're getting pictures of the place, of the landscape, of the architecture, and then we'll say we should get a selfie here. Boop, quick, and then we're done. That's almost more
Mm.
as a reminder for ourselves that we were there.
All right, all right. So you advocate for humanitarian travel and leaving something lasting behind. So how can we, as travelers, stop being tourists who just consume a destination and instead become travelers who actually contribute to it?
Well, I think you can do it a couple of different ways. You can actually do some research into where you're traveling, what are the needs, and maybe contact organizations to see if you can help. We did that one time before we traveled to Nairobi, Kenya, and we got in touch with an orphanage there. And we did, at the time, we were still on the radio, and we did a on-air fundraiser and raised money. We raised clothing, toys, medical supplies, and we took them with us when we went to Nairobi to that particular orphanage. Another time we were in Cambodia and we saw an opportunity to help while we were there.
Yeah, this was a case where it was just sort of almost by accident. We were touring a small neighborhood of homes, very modest huts almost in rural Cambodia. And we saw a sign there near a well. And the sign said, well provided by John and Mary Smith from Omaha, Nebraska, or something like that. And we asked our guide about that. And he said that quite often the tourists will donate money to have a well dug in a rural area that doesn't get fresh water. And so we said, well, let's do that. And so we were able to do that ourselves.
And we did it through the guide. And he took us to a place where the government had donated land to poor and disabled people to live on. And they had makeshift homes and that kind of thing, and no water. They'd have to hike for miles to get water. And so we picked out a spot to make the well, to build the well there. And when we got home, our guide sent us a picture of the well with our name over it, and all the people of this little community around it. And so, I mean, it was beneficial to everyone because for us, it was like a utility bill. I mean, America, we're very, very fortunate. And so it didn't cost a lot to do it, but for them, it gave them water.
Yeah,
that
it literally made a world of difference for them.
So it was good for both of us. And we felt like we were contributing in some small way to helping people that during our travels. So I think that when you travel somewhere, you can, if you have a guide, and we always recommend a guide because not only do you see things better and deeper and more immersive, but that is also utilizing the local and that kind of thing. It's a job. And so you get a good guide and you ask that guide, what kind of things can I do? What do people do to help or leave something meaningful behind? So I think there's several ways you can handle it. And we just totally encourage that when you travel.
Great. Thank you very much, Anne and John, for your humanitarianism and for contributing to places where it's really needed. So, you filmed the documentary Journey on the Trans-Siberian Railway. So, when you take on a massive logistical project like that in an unpredictable environment, what happens when the reality on ground completely clashes with the plan you guys had initially?
Well, start with what happened when we got to Moscow.
Yeah, we arrived in Moscow. Before that, we had actually traveled to Uzbekistan, actually Azerbaijan and Uzbekistan before that trip. So we were flying into Russia from Uzbekistan. When we got there at the airport in Moscow through passport control, I got stopped. They took my passport and held me for seemingly no apparent reason for a couple of hours for questioning, just out of nowhere. I think there was me and maybe two other people that were held. That was completely unexpected, quite unnerving, because we were separated for that amount of time in the airport.
My phone was dead and he had all our chargers. So I couldn't even text him or find out what was going on. So I sat outside with our luggage and just waited. and had no idea. And it was really, really scary because, Russia, people have disappeared. They don't need a reason sometimes. So, in any event, it all turned out okay, but it was very unexpected and never anything quite like that had happened before. So, that, and then, along the way, there were things that, would happen that I suppose, we were in a small cabin with two other people, 6x6 cabin on the train,
Mm-hmm.
and traveled for 16, the whole trip was 16 days. The first part of it was 4 days in a row. No, we stopped, but there was no bathing, no, whatever. It was just 4 days on the train. And that can get a little interesting.
Yeah, it's as you said, there was no showers, no bathtubs. It was just the little, wet naps, and you'd wipe yourself down, and that was it for 4 days. That's very unusual for us, certainly, and but it took some getting used to. But it was I think it was a little unexpected, but we got through it as best we
That
could.
was part of that journey, and we knew it was not gonna be plush. It was not gonna be a luxury train. We already knew that ahead of time, but, we met a lot of really interesting people along the way. We also stopped in Mongolia. It started in Moscow, went through Mongolia, which we were really excited about because we had not been there, and then ended in Beijing. And I think one of, the most interesting parts of Beijing, or the whole trip, frankly, was the Sunday afternoon that we went to Tiananmen Square in Beijing, and it was a beautiful Sunday, and there were all these families out, and they were doing what people all over the world do, picnicking and doing stuff with their family. And we kind of stood out because he's 6'3", and we were clearly not Chinese. And so people
Mm-hmm.
wanted to get their picture taken with us. And all these families were coming up and getting next to us and taking their picture with us. And we have all these pictures of people giving us the peace sign. And I had a woman who had her phone on a selfie stick, and she did this thing with me, like to get her picture taken with me. And I went, sure. And then all of a sudden she starts dancing around like this with me. And then when we stopped, she showed me what she had done. She put it to music. She made a little music video of she and I in Tiananmen Square. And it's like, we were caused a lot of attention, I think,
Yeah,
that afternoon in such a nice way. People were
yeah,
so welcoming and friendly.
and I don't think any of them spoke English. It was just
No,
all done with
Oh. Oh.
and
yeah.
this, and it was great. And that was really something we learned on that whole trip, going through Russia and Mongolia and China. Certainly Russia and China these days, in general, you think that those are adversarial countries to America. And as far as the governments are concerned, that may be true. But when you actually talk to the people, the Russian people, the Chinese people, and you get to know them and interact with them, we're all very much the same. We
Mm.
all spend a Sunday afternoon being
In
tourists
a
in our
park.
country in a
Yeah.
park and taking
Yep.
pictures with other people, and that was a great learning experience for us.
All right, that sounds like a really fascinating day for you guys. Thank you very much for sharing it with us here today. So, for the couple listening in our audience right now who are about to take their first major international trip and are absolutely terrified of things going wrong, so what advice would you give to such a couple right now? What's the very first mental shift they need to make today?
Well, first you need to plan ahead. Don't just show up and think everything's going to be fine, because especially in Europe, if there are sites you want to see, you probably need tickets ahead of time, skip the line tickets, all those kind of things. So you really want to plan ahead. But in terms of mindset, I mean, you just have to know that it's going to be a long flight. It may not be comfortable. You could lose luggage. You might have trouble with, getting to your hotel or whatever. A transfer might not show up. I mean, there are a million things that can happen, and they don't always by any means, but prepare your mind that that's all part of the journey.
And realize that more often than not, very often, the people in the country that you're visiting are going to help you, and they're going to be friendly, especially in the tourism industry. They'll they'll help you with getting rides or giving directions or reading a menu or whatever. You're going to run into very friendly, helpful people. That's what we found.
Usually everywhere, for sure.
All right, all right. Thank you very much for sharing that wonderful piece of advice. I sincerely hope it helps someone in our audience listening. So, Anne and John, for our listeners who want to go pick up a copy of Travel is No Vacation, or watch your documentary, or maybe just connect with you guys, where is the best place for them to go?
Certainly go to travelisnovacation.com and get more information about us there, more information about the book. There are links to buy the book there, but you can also go directly to Amazon for the book and to barnesandnoble.com for the book. And our documentary, Journey on the Trans-Siberian Railway, is available for free on YouTube.
All right, all right. Thank you very much for sharing that with us here today. And John, it's been a truly amazing time having a conversation with you guys, and I am overly excited having you on the show today. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Ezekiel.
Thank you
Thanks for
for
having
having
us.
us. Yeah.